One, and we are recording with Dr. Aaron Williams for episode 801. Today is Thursday, May 5th, 2022, 4:38 p.m. Eastern Time. And as of yesterday, there's yet another food processing plant burning down. Is this just is this straight up engineered, or are we paying attention to these? Because on one hand, I saw that's like there's like there's like 10,000 food processing plants in the United States, and like 20 have burned down this year. Okay, that's if you saw a car crash on the news every time a car crashed, but there are two car accident fatalities per state per day. You got to remember that. Like, we just don't see them on the news because
Yeah.
there's a certain level we've accepted. I don't know enough about food processing plants, and I'm not even going to pretend to act like I know. But fire after fire after fire after fire in the wake of like COVID, of censorship, it does kind of seem like a manufactured food crisis to make us more dependent on a centralized government. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I would agree. I mean, I'd love to see like true numbers.
Yeah.
What was the baseline? How often did this happen? But my guess is that I mean, not many buildings go up in flames, especially entirely, and like completely get knocked out. In a big inferno. So my thought process is that it's highly likely that yes, that this is way more than the average. If there's even one a year, maybe two a whole year. I mean, there's a lot of food processing plants, but we have a lot of processes to where you don't have fires in these areas, in these spaces, no matter what kind of equipment they're working with or what kind of processes they're run. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that it likely is way above, and I think it likely is engineered. I mean, it's a weird spot to be in. It's a very surreal spot. A couple of years ago, I would have never entertained the idea until recently. But yeah, you've got that. You've got the bird flu, telling them to get rid of all of their, everyone to get rid of their chickens, and then you've got climate change accords. I believe it was Scotland or Ireland was going to have to kill off 1 million of their sheep and cattle in order to meet their climate goals. You say, well, if this, we've got all this concern coming from the World Health Organization, all these places about our health, if that's real and it's not feigned and actually the opposite, then they would say, hey, we have to hold up on this because we're talking about food security all the time lately. And we're talking about food shortages. So why would we have you do that? So let's hold off for a year or two. Let's pretend that all that's on the up and up. But that's what you would do if you cared. That's what you would do if you were trying to actually get people fed. So the totality of the evidence that I've seen, I guess I can't say the word totality because I haven't seen all the evidence nor looked at all the different issues. But what I have seen is, Bill Gates is the largest owner of farmland in the United States. GMOs have been proven to not be very good, yet they continue to push them. And while I have not confirmed this directly, but I've heard that Monsanto doesn't even allow GMOs in their lunchrooms, for instance, and that many of these entities and organizations actually have their own organic gardens, like Gates, for example. So I don't know whether that's true. I haven't looked into it, but I think there's so many other things that match up with exactly what you're saying, that it's an engineered food crisis to make us dependent.
And I try not to quote him, even though he's right a lot of times. He is kind of he is a lightning rod. But I saw some guy make this great little like 2 minute, 3 minute kind of music mashup of Alex Jones. He makes a ton of them. Some of them are crazy, some of them are just funny. But one of them was really good. And it was Alex Jones talking about the World Economic Forum. But he was like, I'm not even going to do the voice,
Good.
but he
That
was
was good.
saying that, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm an agent of God. I'm here to fight these demons. But he's talking about how like what we're seeing now is the culmination of decades of work. And really, so it's like he compares it to a missile. And they've been building it underground for decades. And there's been conspiracies about like, yeah, no, they're consolidating power behind the scenes. But that's like people escaping the missile construction center and being like, they're building missiles beneath the mountain. And you're like, all right, dude. And then in like the last 3 years, the the big silo doors in the mountain have opened, and you know that huge like rocket crawler that they use for the Apollo missions, where it's like a big square and it's just got like treads on it and it moves at like a mile to the launch pad. He's like, for the last 3 years we've been seeing the rocket. It came out of the mountainside, and we saw it with the 2020 election. We saw it with COVID. We're seeing it with the World Economic Forum, censorship, and we're seeing the rocket, and it's slowly being moved. And it's I don't know, maybe like 6 months or a year ago, it actually got to like the launch pad, and they're like, it's there's steam coming off of it, and like they're taking out like the umbilical cords, and it's like on the gantry, and like you can see the people moving away from it, and he's like, we're watching this thing happen. We know what it is. The rocket is the global coup. It's the world technocracy. It's the engineered food shortages. It's the depopulation of man. It's the moving to a digital central currency. It's the abolishment of nations, and it is the top 0.00001% transcending biology and becoming some weird cyborg hybrid while the rest of us die. And he's like, we see it. We've been speculating about it for decades, and then we saw it over the last couple of years, and now it's there, and there's a countdown going, and it's going to take off. And when it takes off, it's going to go hit its target, and it's going to be the end. And although things seem scary right now, it is still on the launch pad. There's something we can still do. And now there's no denying it. Now everyone's going, there it is. There's the rocket. I can see the steam coming off of it. I can see like the astronauts going in it. There's the helicopters. I'm looking at the rocket, and a lot of people are going, oh, maybe it's like a friendly rocket. And other people are going, that's a rocket. It's a rocket with a weapon on it. And I keep thinking about that more and more. Just now recently with, like you said, the food shortages, Bill Gates talking about the next pandemic, the disinformation governance board, and as of yesterday, another Walmart center, food distribution center burning down. I mean, it's the rocket. It's the Great Reset rocket, and there's now no doubt that it's there. What is there to do? And obviously, just as we always disclaim, this is not a call to arms. Please do not do that. My podcast is not to inspire that.
Absolutely not. And and it wouldn't work anyway. That's been more gamed out. I'm sure that they would love for us to do that, to then have a bigger military clampdown on everyone than they've already got. So yeah, I think one of the most interesting thought processes that I have with all this, that differs from pretty well anything I've ever heard, so probably just makes me extra crazy, so to speak, is the fact that even if that rocket goes off, I don't think the rocket does nearly as much damage as what we think. And what I mean by that is that a lot of what's been crafted around us is illusion. It really is. So whether it's your Federal Reserve Bank and your quote unquote money that's currency, and the way we do and run all this in an impossible scheme financially, where more money is owed to the banks, ultimately to the private Federal Reserve Bank, than is ever printed or made up through fractional reserve banking. Like, how does the system end anything different? So, but we live it, and we all agree to use those dollars and their little symbols hidden in there, as currency. And if we were to all say, we aren't going to use those dollars anymore, and they say, oh, well, that's it's it's been federally, what is it, legal tender, it's a law, it's a legal statute. You might, laws versus statutes, slightly different things. But if we were to all just say, actually, we realize how big of a farce this is, and so everybody starts doing something different entirely. And whether you talk about that being crypto, or you say, you know what, I'm not going to order that thing from Europe, or I'm not going to order that thing from across the country if I can't like barter, and we can't do that, and we start to live locally. All of a sudden, they're sitting around with all this paper and all these dots and tibbles on a screen, and it doesn't really, nothing works anymore. But when you take and you follow those dots and tittles and those currency dollars around, then that's when it's, oh, now we can make you take our shot, because we'll take your job, which will take your dollars. And so you have to take our shot. And so whatever they do or don't put in there, you have to now line up for the next thing. And everybody who's following, so whether those were the Nazi soldiers like we talked about, or they're our own military, they know probably something isn't right, but they're trying to do the right thing by keeping order and structure. And we've been led to believe that. I mean, it sounds, I'm talking a little bit like anarchy in a way, but it's a very civilized anarchy whenever you talk about a completely unjust government and a system that is basically legalized injustice on steroids for 200 years plus. And so my thought, if I don't go in too much deeper to that, is basically that if everybody wakes up and stops playing the game, that includes the people in the military. Say our leaders are telling us to do the wrong thing. We're seeing our fellow soldiers dropping. They're dying. They're having huge vaccine injuries. They get kicked out of the military. We need to stop this. I mean, the leaders keep telling us, a shot in every arm, but they talk amongst themselves. I'm not advocating fully for this by any stretch, because I have no control over the military. That said, interesting thought process of what would happen if. And I think a lot of this would lose its power and its grip. We've been trained to think of the apocalypse being the world ending. We've been trained to be scared of the next virus and pandemic. All of it in order to control the next steps. If there's only this many people trying to control this many people, the only way they can do it is if these people all believe in the illusions and control themselves.
Do you think that what's going on right now is actually like necessary? Like if you ran like a simulation of mankind a million times right now, I think we could even look back. If we could go back to someone in 1945, we go back to Oppenheimer and he's like, now I become death, destroyer of worlds. We might actually say, actually, dude, you decreased war. There are still wars, but I cite this all the time in terms of total and percentage deaths of the human population due to war. It had been rising for all of human history, and it's been declining since August 9th, 1945, when we dropped the second A-bomb. There are still wars, Vietnam, Iraq, Korea, the Soviets in Afghanistan, Ukraine right now, but it's been going down. We might actually go back to Oppenheimer and say it's actually become pretty clear that this actually decreases the lethality of war across the board. And I think we would probably now all agree, if you like reset mankind and they invented nuclear weapons again, there's a high likelihood that human beings with the same brains as us would go, we can't launch these, because then everyone will launch them. Maybe 99 out of 100 times you would say, no, this is actually good. This is actually that kind of confusion of like puberty and getting older. You now look back and you go, oh, that was a formative part of my life, right? The first breakup, getting too hungover, getting too drunk and throwing up outside of a bar. You now look back and go, oh, you're not weird for you ask anybody, they're like, oh yeah, I remember the first time I got too drunk. And all of a sudden you go, oh, this is a part of growing up. This is a part of being scared of losing money, of whatever, of having brush-ins with the law, of getting too high. All these things that feel like they're at the end of the world at the time, you look back and go, oh, that's actually a formative and universal part of life. I wonder if in 100 years, someone might come back to us and go, it's been pretty widely accepted that every civilization goes through this weird point where it seems like there's about to be a totalitarian takeover of the entire world, not just nations, because that can happen. But every civilization goes through a sort of really scary growth process where it seems like the world's about to end and the evil guys are going to win. But in reality, that's the only thing that ever lights the fire under the ass of the collective man or woman to rise up and go, we can't do this. We're not taking part. And it doesn't mean some violent takeover. It just means, we're not playing the game anymore. Like I wonder if this is actually part of growing up as a species. Maybe this is just we meet another alien race and they go, oh yeah, no, we had this thing where like these weird guys, so they're trying to take over the whole thing. It was crazy, and we all tried to deny that it wasn't happening, and then it started to happen, and it got really dark and scary. But like a movie, it was just the third act, and then the good guys won. We might be like, what are you talking about? We go back and tell Oppenheimer, no, there's not, no, there's not Holocaust. No, actually, we land on the moon. Is that part of it, or is that just not that you have the answer, but am I just taking the opiate? Am I just not looking at the evil?
No, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of like truth in that thought process because all these nations, I mean, when you talk to people, and there's many physicians I talk to, for instance, and when they came and either grew up in or their parents grew up in communist countries, for instance, they remember, they feel it, they know. But for many of the people here, they have no recollection and they don't listen. They don't have any conception whatsoever, even when people tell them that this is exactly the way it started in their country. So when it comes to cycles, once all these people are too comfortable, too much circus, etc., and I'm not advocating no one should have, some of either of those or many of the former, but when that happens, humans fall back into that same place where they become complacent, distracted. They don't want to believe or have to really stretch themselves to deal with something that may or may not be happening to where it is allowed to build up over and over again. So can that happen? That definitely happens in countries, like it definitely. And so even over the world, that's happened. So, generationally or, through larger spells of time, 500 years, 1,000 years, I wouldn't doubt it a bit. And I guess where I'm hopeful is that if we're in that cycle, that as we break out of it through this very painful process of societal detox, as I like to frame it, very painful, but we have to go through it. I'm hoping that we can remember and we can find a way to build systems and structures that are resistant to people taking history, burying it, changing it, and slowly, little inch by little inch, changing everything back to where they've got that rocket on that launch pad again.
Now, I'm trying to think of if maybe you're someone that wants to come out and sort of like lead the new society. Maybe you'd have to wait until it started to collapse. Like maybe you'd have to, if you want to say like, hey guys, like we all need to learn how to grow our own food. We need to like, we got to get rid of inflation. We got to stop printing money. We can't do this centralized BS anymore. We can't do X, Y, and Z. I mean, kind of like an Alex Jones, right? With every passing year, he's still nuts, but with every passing year, he is a considerable amount less crazy. And the end, we might realize he was never crazy at all, and it was our own, I guess, head under the sandedness. But it's like one of the things where 20 years ago, if you were like, I watch Alex Jones every day, be like, dude, you're nuts. Now, my friends that watch Alex Jones every day, I'm like, oh, what is he saying? I just ask as like a news source now. I'm like, what is he talking about? And they're like, they send me clips, and now I look at it less as like a meme where I'm like, oh, it's Alex Jones, and now I'm like, what is he saying? And I'm like, oh, that's what he's saying. Okay. I mean, over like Christmas break, when he had on Dr. McCullough, I got to go down there and actually like meet him. And I think it was that day, but he was talking about, he's like, no, I seem crazy. He's like, February is when the next great war is going to break out. And part of me was just like, no, like stick with the vaccine. And then like Ukraine gets invaded in February, and it's like, okay, hold on. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like maybe shit has to get so wild before you're willing to accept someone else, some Donald Trump figure, some Alex Jones figure coming in and being like, all right, I've been saying it for 20 years. Now do you guys believe me? Now that 99% of everything I've said has come true, are you willing to believe the last 1%? That is that they're going to try to depopulate the world. At a certain point, you're going to go, okay, literally everything you've said has come true. Sure. again, like, is it necessary, or is it not necessary at all? Are we really running? Are we really running out the clock? And is this a dangerous gamble?
Well, I think some of it, there's some degree, some of it's inevitable, if wherever the virus intentionally or unintentionally leaked from Wuhan and or whatever its predecessors were before it got transferred, if they have that, it's hard to stop that right now, especially with the numbers of awake people versus the numbers of distracted people still believing in the system. So, I mean, I think there's things that we can do to prepare and to lessen and blunt it. Again, going back to that scripture somewhere in Revelations about unless the time the period of the tribulation be lessened. And so, whether we're in the tribulation, about to be, whatever, that same concept holds in my mind that there's still always something we can do. But I think that there's still some things that will be in motion that are still going to be hard to go after. But I mean, what you're saying too about Alex Jones, here's another a funny way to flip it around and think about it. But what is Alex Jones reporting on it? What is Alex Jones reporting? Because I mean, I haven't followed Alex Jones by any stretch very closely at all. I've seen a few things here and there. But that said, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, quite a few of the things that he's talked about are indeed coming true. And so at some point, yeah, you lend that more credence. But I do think there is more that we can do. But it takes a hell of a lot of work, and it takes a lot more people. It takes a lot more people waking up slowly but surely to be able to force that. It just has to be a mass. It has to be like a critical mass of people, because either the critical mass of people is over here perpetuating the system and allowing it to exist. Like, if you were at a big business and every single person that day, when you told them they had to have their shot, walked off the job, they would come back in the parking lot and say, "Oh, never mind, we'll make it optional." I
Yeah,
mean, we know of a few like small to medium-sized businesses that actually happens.
yeah,
And so I think that same concept applies. So either you're over here, perpetuating this system, that's a beast, or you're over here like working on creating the foundation of a new society. So I don't know. I'm always hopeful, but yeah, but there's a lot to do, and I think there's more not good to come.
yeah, yeah. Maybe my conception of it's flawed. Maybe there doesn't have to be some like leader or something. Maybe it really is just a critical mass. Like, yeah, I mean, I think about like in college when like we'd all be at there's like a strip of bars, and like we'd all or a ton of people from like different fraternities and friend groups would all be at like one bar. There was never like there was one bar we always went to called Flip Flops. It was just a shitty bar. It was the bar that everyone went to, so everyone else went to it. And then there's this weird bar called Charlie O's. I think it was Charlie O'Corley. I think it burned down. Not a good analogy, but it was there, and it was much bigger. It had a lot more outdoor space, and like the beer was a lot cheaper. But no one went to it because no one else went to it. And then over the course, it was the weirdest thing. For like the 2 years that I was at Valdosta, and then for like the years that all the older guys had been there, really no one ever went there. And then over the course of like 2 weeks, like the paradigm completely shifted. I think one day, like someone got thrown out of flip flops, and they were like, "Fuck you all! I'm going to Charlie O's," and like one or two of his friends went with him. And like the next day, someone else was like, "I'll go with you. I don't care." And it wasn't even like a slow drip. Like over the course of like 10 days, the entire Greek life scene shifted over there.
Mhm.
And as then like when I visited like 3 years after it was still there. But there was no like one conscious leader. It was just this moment where someone was like,
Mhm.
"I'm sick of these girly drinks. Like, fuck this music. I hate the dress code. I just want to go smoke a cig and watch a band." And then like and as long as anyone could remember, it was like, yeah, no, like everyone's always gone to flip flops. So like the last 20 years, look at all like the old fraternity albums. They've been going flip flops since like 1990. And then it just shifted. And maybe you have to hit that tipping point of like where like all the drinks are like girly like daiquiris. All they play is Justin Bieber. They don't allow you to smoke cigarettes inside. the cover is too much, and it has to just get so bad that finally
Eventually.
people are like, I'm going to that shitty, weird Irish bar that doesn't have enough lights. Like, I'm going there. And then it just exploded. And it all of a sudden it was like cool to go to the bar again. But there was no conscious moment. It might just be that. It might not be that there's a great plan. Yeah, I don't know.
There's everywhere. I mean, I think there's a tipping point to everything. You know, will you jump out of a window? No, why would I ever do a second story window? No, I wouldn't do that. Okay, your house is on fire and you can't get out. I might still try to find another way. Okay, there's a reasonably cushy bush down at the bottom. Okay, I'll do it. You know, will you throw your 2-year-old out a window? Use that same analogy that I already got to. And everything has a tipping point. And, you know, for them, complacency or I don't know, comfort level and the usual thing, everybody does it, right? I mean, that's got some very good correlations to society in general. But once, and it sounds like in your story, there was a little bit of a leader, a little bit of an instigator, but at the same time, it was the mass that made that happen. If he had just gone over there by himself or with two friends for the last 2 years of his collegiate life or something, then it probably wouldn't have done anything. But yeah, it's that movement over, but to get people out of comfort, and we've been taught and trained that comfort is the thing. There's a great video on After School, SKOOL, if you've ever seen any of their videos. They do kind of like a pictorial as they go along, but they'll have all kinds of speakers and different people on there, very influential speakers and what have you, anywhere all the way up to, like, I wouldn't say, probably not the top, but he speaks well. Russell Brand even does some of his stuff, but like Matthew McConaughey, they've had, I think he's probably had Joe Rogan, all kinds of stuff. But they'll go through these pictorials. And what was the one that I was thinking of to tell you about? As I started thinking through the pictorials, I kind of got thrown off a little bit. Where were we at just before that with the flip?
Singular leader going to the bar, everyone comfort. We all want comfort.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. So one was basically on how society had been molded as opposed to, back in like Greek and Roman times. They've been molded towards comfort and safety. And we talked about safety versus courage. And basically saying that everything you do, if you do it for safety, you're going to be in a box. And then people can move that box around. People can make that box smaller. They usually don't make it larger. And they can do whatever they want kind of with you. And there's no real progress in society that goes on that way. But if people take on the courageous mindset and they say, you know what, it's uncomfortable, it maybe isn't safe. It doesn't mean, go out and do crazy things. That's not what we're talking about. Go, walk on the edge of a cliff. But in general, taking subtle, reasonable risks, or even fairly big risks in order to accomplish something for yourself, your family, your community, humanity, these things should be applauded and rewarded. But what's been rewarded in society, right? It's sports rather than brains, very much so over time, looks rather than character, all these different things, being a victim rather than being, a resilient and or conqueror. So I think, yeah, you're right with where all that plays. It took a lot to get everybody at the bar to go to the other one, and it takes even way more than that for the conditioning of society to change sides.
Do you think Elon Musk, do you think he's genuine, or do you think he's controlled opposition?
That's such a great question. I've gone back and forth.
I've wrestled with it so much.
But man, when I look at it, I'm going, okay, well, if you were a double or a triple, agents type of thing, and I look at which one would be easier to fake and to feign. And I don't know a ton, but I did spend about an hour and a half watching some like motivational video with him talking, going through a bunch of different interviews he had. And I've seen interviews with him in the past, and they can be good actors, but he seems very genuine in his emotion and in his care for different things and people. And it wasn't just when he got snubbed by I don't know if it was Buzz Armstrong and whoever. But that said, he got snubbed. But other times when he's talking about people, talking about humanity, and he tears up a bit, and he has a hard time talking, and it seems very genuine. Then you flip on the other side and you try to figure out, okay, well, how could he be controlled opposition? And you kind of know what the overall agenda is, and you look at his Neuralink, for instance, and you say, okay, well, is it easier to feign all of that emotion repeatedly over time and seem like you have a lot of care for humanity and talk about doing an entirely new banking system, as I think he and Peter Thiel talked about back in the day, if I'm not mistaken, and needing to take the power out of the hands of the central bankers, and also exposing things like, letting people know this. I kind of said this for a while. Basically, that if you give the government all the power, it's just a corporation. It's the biggest corporation, and that's
Yeah.
actually literal too, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
They have to have some sort of structure. Let's just leave it at that. But exposing kind of things like that and thought processes like that, I don't know. Of course, controlled opposition has to do something helpful along the way, but I don't know. I feel like he's mostly good, and or going to hopefully take us through rather than take us to Neuralink, fully controlled mind dystopia. But that's my hope, but I don't rest on it, and I will never take a Neuralink and
No.
move on. But I am fascinated by that, by his story and where is he in things, and it can be gray too, right? At times he could have no real affiliation and just be like following what he wants to do in his head that he thinks he wants to do. But I don't know. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of me. I always used to think it was like one of two things. It was like he was either a good guy or he was controlled opposition. Like there might be a third. It might just be chaotic. He might just wake up every day and go, well, today might be the last. Tweet a picture of Bill Gates and buy Twitter. Just it might be that. Like it could very well, let me look at like my own podcast. Sure, I try to do good, but there are a lot of episodes where I'm just like, fuck it. Like this, like an hour ago, I didn't think I was going to talk to you about food processing plants. But just before you came on, I was like on Twitter and I was like, another one burned down. And now we're on this whole thread. So like he might just be chaotic. I think the not what word am I looking for? Repulsion, resistance. I think that that a lot of people have to him is too genuine for me to think that he's controlled opposition, right? If you see like Mitt Romney and Obama going back and forth in 2012, it doesn't seem too passionate and too genuine. It's like, oh, come, you guys are both getting the same Raytheon. Oh, you are a liberal. Oh, you Republican. And it's like, not really. I don't think Trump was controlled opposition. I think they truly viscerally hated him. And I look at how they're reacting now to Elon, and I'm like, their hatred seems to be too real. And Elon seems like he's just toying with them. Like, again, I don't know what it is. Maybe he's just the alternative. And in 100 years, we'll look back and everyone will hate dictator Musk. I don't know. But I think their hatred of him is too and also just like if he's actually pushing for like less people to be banned online, like that's something that like cuts through all are you controlled op. They don't like the free flow of information, period. If he's pushing for that,
and if he follows through,
correct, because that's practicing what you preach. That's not empty promises. That's not hope and change. That's not George Bush, mission accomplished, or like, but then we all go through the same shit anyway. And you're like, well, nothing happened. No bankers went to jail. Like there was never like a complete, exoneration of like why I went to Iraq. But if he's actually doing this stuff, if he's actually making electric cars, if he's actually making rockets that land themselves and is trying to go to Mars, and if he's actually pushing for free speech, those are all things that like you wouldn't question whether or not your personal trainer is a snake oil salesman if the things they were teaching you to do, you were actually losing fat, you were actually building muscle, like you were sleeping better. You'd be like, I don't care how sleazy they seem. It might be some guy with like frosted tips and a fake tan, and you're like, I'm losing weight and I feel better. Like, I know he looks like a douchebag, but like, dude, he's it's the real deal, you know. I feel better. Am I making sense, or am I just in like an allergy delusion?
No, that makes perfect sense. I think there's certain things that, excuse me,
You're good.
there's certain things that you can't fake. And sorry about that.
You're good.
Certain things you can't fake. And also, I think there's a give and take when there's controlled op, that they let them have some wins, and that way they can get everybody onto that bandwagon and then either take them and stop or take them the wrong way. That said, there's certain ones that seem like they're a little too important. Like, if really you do get that on Twitter and you get the ability for people to talk in mass again, and he removes a lot of the bots, if he, the other piece to it that that would be helpful, the child trafficking and all that kind of stuff. If he really rooted that stuff out, where they're doing that sort of thing through those platforms, and also exposed it because they would have the data, then you would see something really, really big turnover. And that's not something you would give if you were controlled up. You almost wonder if, there's a point where, you hope and pray somebody that influential and that powerful, they finally got to the point where they were powerful enough to then be able to buy Twitter, surprise everybody, and then start doing the right thing. And I'm hoping that's, what we're seeing there. So, but time will tell.
My two favorite comedians, Tim Dillon and Ray Kump, had this. I was listening to a podcast that they did back in like 2017, and they're both talking. They're like, do you think Trump was controlled op that went wrong? Like, he was playing the role, and then one day was like, fuck it, cut the chains. And then they were like, wait, because it's like, we look at like the resist, like, you don't have to like Trump. I do. Most people don't. I don't care. There's no questioning that, like, when every president gets attacked in office, there's never been a coordinated effort like that, right? For better or worse. Maybe he really is a Russian agent. I don't know. But the weird thing is like, he got into office, and I feel like if the vile reaction to him was that genuine, they never would have let him get in, because he beat out a Bush dynasty and a Clinton dynasty. You don't just do that. Now, if you're controlled op, you do. But the controlled op would make no sense if, as soon as you got your guy in, all of a sudden you just like gridlocked everything and threw like story after story and impeachment after impeachment at him.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I've always wondered, like, was he controlled op just to get into the position and then just went nuts? Like, are you a political candidate in a South American nation and you play ball at the CIA, they throw a coup, they get you in, and then you have a brief window of time where you go, all of a sudden you cut your ties with the CIA and you're like, I'm for the people. They're going to assassinate you. But man, you can get like 2 years of just like real, genuine, you can be the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that something like Elon Musk, right? He's playing ball. Mm-hmm. He's clearly he's in with the military industrial complex. He has contracts with Department of Defense, the National Reconnaissance Office, the National Geospatial Agency, the NSA. He's part of the guys, the ULA, the United Launch Alliance of like Boeing and whoever the hell else builds the rockets. They all hated him, and he got in. And he gets tons of subsidies through Tesla.
He's their largest contractor, the DoD's largest contractor. Seth, what is it? Seth, I believe is his name. One of the like high-level Trump advisors mentioned that the other day somewhere.
Okay.
Anyway, go back to where you were.
Space Force, right? You almost wonder if he played ball, or maybe he wasn't even playing ball. Maybe he was genuine. He was consciously being controlled opposition, right? Mm-hmm. And then, do you have a change of heart? Do you have some like Scrooge, go out and buy the fattest turkey? Like, you just, you're visited by the angel of death. or was the entire thing conscious? Are you playing as a pawn the entire time just to get in there? And then once you have enough power and control and you can move $300 billion around, I mean, let's be honest, he's built up a lot of like uh not, this is the wrong term, but he's built up a lot of social credit over the
Mhm.
years, right? He's not
Yes.
some curmudgeon. He's Elon Musk. He smokes pot on Joe Rogan. He tweets memes, you know. He posts a picture of like the pregnant man emoji next to Bill Gates and says, "In case you need to lose a boner fast." Like, I don't know if you saw that, but
Mhm.
oh man, like 2 weeks ago, you know the pregnant male emoji?
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, there's a picture of Bill Gates that he's wearing like the same sweater and he's got this like pouch, this belly, and he tweeted like last Friday or the one before that. He tweeted at like 1 a.m. It's just Bill Gates next to that male emoji. It just says, "In case you need to lose a boner fast." When I saw it, I thought it was fake.
Uh-huh.
No, dude, it's it's like his most liked tweet of all time,
Um,
right? And he's sort of like that rock star Tony Stark. Like he's built up a lot of social credit. Maybe he's playing this game over the last 2 decades for this moment. I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this. You can hop in at any time.
oh, well, I would say that I think most important to what you're even talking about, and I think Elon's just one of the most amazing examples trying to figure it out, and one of the hardest examples to figure out. But I think the bigger truth that you're talking about in here is you're getting a lot of different scenarios. You're not taking people to the false dichotomy of all good and all bad. Because when we do that, it's a lot easier for society to be pulled. Here's the leader. No, here's your leader. For us to get on bandwagons and to be pulled into a place. And so being able to like take a breath and try to figure out, were they bad, then good, then okay, then bad, then, or were they, bad, then, or good, then bad, wherever they were, that understanding and appreciating that complexity, I think is really something that we're lacking. We all, I mean, I realize myself too the same way over time, and I've kind of tried to break myself of it when I realized it these last couple of years. But I'm always trying to like go, they're this or they're that, and trying to figure out where everybody is. And we have to figure that out so we know that we're not, being continually led by the wrong people. But at the same time, being able to understand the nuance there, like I think helps you to understand the complexity of the big picture too, because it's not like oh, they're all going to win or we're all going to win. No, they're going to win some battles probably here and there, and there's people who were good who then had their family threatened and all of a sudden they did the wrong thing. You have to kind of be able to see those different pieces and discern them as best you can, and that's probably the best word for what you're doing there. Discernment. You're really
Yeah.
just actually appreciating that detail.
Yeah. Another part of me thinks that like back to the whole like, growing pains of a civilization, it might be that like there is a great reset and it does succeed. And that maybe is like I mean, think of like how many sperm compete to get to one ovum or one egg or whatever the hell it is.
Mhm.
And then all the nutrients go to that one, everything else dies off. You go to that one, you find the thing that works, and then you quadruple down. Of every time there's evolution, you know, we always have these great extinctions, these great die-offs where like the top 0.1% of successful organisms survive, right? And now even with like humanity, it's like, we have these ever increasing just smaller and smaller coves of people who have all the best healthcare, all the best education. And from like a Darwinian standpoint, it makes sense. Forget all these idiots like Tommy or Dr. Williams or all these, as Henry Kissinger would say, the useless eaters, which is the most psychopathic thing ever. If you had like the perfect like genetic mix of diversity, of no bad recessive traits, of people that just naturally live to 110, who are all educated at like have private tutors from like the age 2 forward, who are all, I mean, really just this idea of like true ivory tower calling the elites. And if you took them And then they all would get constant like stem cell therapy and all the best, almost like you treat like a queen bee or something. Like as a collect, if you're just playing a video game, just completely detached from it, yeah, you'd want to make like one small group of maybe like 1,000 people the absolute best and let them break away into the next best thing, right? A nation sends its tippy top athletes to the Olympics, right? In the Darwinian sense of a cold, unloving universe where it's just the most efficient survive. On the other hand, like the first hand being what we talked about earlier, like maybe there's growing pains and you break out of it. It also might be that no, this is completely natural, where all the resources coalesce into a tiny, 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 tiny group, and they break away. They get they merge with supercomputers and they break out and go, I don't know, spread to other star systems, and the rest of us collapse in some climate change ravaged world. Like that also kind of plays into like every animal doesn't exist anymore. Like 99.999% of species that have ever existed are extinct. It's because the best ones broke. I mean, why did you have 10 kids back in the day? So one would live. I mean, is that the other dark side? Like this might be this weird egg, and all the energy is going into the fertilized cell. And then that one can go start multiplying, and the rest of it sloughs off, and we're just this useless petri dish of nutrients.
I think it's certainly possible. I mean, anything really is possible, but I will say that I think that with the pendulum swings that occur, whether it's in business, whether it was in medicine, when they were pushing us that, pain is the newest vital sign, and pushing opioids. Oh, they're non-addictive. OxyContin, it's non-addictive. And a lot of people go, well, wait a minute, that makes zero logical sense whatsoever. We appreciate caring about people's pain, but we also shouldn't make them addicts and put pills all over the entire nation. Eventually that pendulum kind of swings back, and I think we've been so baked in with everything so long that I'm hoping that attempt for that little small percentage, and I'm not saying they even have the best DNA, but that small percentage that either feel, think, feign that they're elite, that this exposure during this time breaks that plan down slowly but surely. And, I'm believing in a biblical sort of universe, which I do. I mean, I think that there's no way that in the end, because that sounds like the end event. And in the end event, if they've kind of gotten rid of all of us, God's just coming back and wiping them out, but we're not still here. I think that's where I just still maintain optimism. I think they're trying for that. They're trying for that. I think that's pretty clear. They call us useless eaters from the highest levels of over the government trilateral commissions and what have you.
Yeah.
And they mean it, and they say lots of things to demonstrate it. They do things continually. We're basically society. If you're not a part of that group, you're like that spouse being slowly poisoned to death by your other spouse, so no one will ever know. You just keep kind of getting sicker, and they keep acting like they care more about you all the time, and people look at them and say, oh my gosh, it's so terrible what's happening to Bob and Becky, but Bob has been so sweet to her while she's just been having the worst health problems, but he is just an angel and he needs our help. Let's help him. Oh, he's doing the right things, right? So the government is Bob, especially these high level people. This isn't like normal, right? But that's basically what we've been doing, whether it's the GMOs, whether it's the arsenic in the baby food, whether it's the food shortages, whether it's the viruses, whether it's the vaccine, non-vaccines, whatever it is, it all is pointing in the same direction. It doesn't get better.
No.
It all gets worse with the feigning of it. They're trying to help it get better. Meanwhile, it never does. They don't supply good solutions. They have an Event 201 pandemic exercise at Hopkins. And yet, despite being able to call it very well, what was going to start leaking out the next month, literally in China, They didn't have good answers for it. They didn't have any good answers. If you know these things are going to happen, why can't you stop them? If you have that much power and control over the world and you're designing the systems, how can't you design the system to take care of that a lot faster rather than just prepare everyone mentally for how scary it's going to be and how well you're going to take care of them, how they should
Yeah.
trust in you?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, that's so crazy that after she was poisoned by arsenic, Becky then also somehow consumed cobalt. Like, wow. Like, that is, thank God for Bob. And it's like, how odd. How odd that thank God we had this government that came in after 9/11 and they're like, don't worry, guys, we're gonna fucking figure this thing out. And then poor Becky, she succumbed to the 2008 financial crisis. But thank God, you know who's there? Government Bob. Bob was there to help out. And you'll never believe this. Becky then caught this COVID virus. Don't worry. Again, Godsend Bob was there. And
Yeah.
then, it was crazy. And then there, and it's like again and again and again. It's like, well, hold on a second. And I'm with you. I am optimistic and I don't want it to coalesce. That's insane. Um, it could be that on the other hand, you look at something like, I don't know, like you look at every empire. There's only ever one existing empire, and all the other ones are history. It's just always that way. You have one. You have right now. We live in the United States Empire. We dress it up as America and our bases abroad. No, it's the same thing. It's one guy has all the gold and all the guns, and we're just kind of bullying our way around the world. The rest of the world doesn't they don't capitulate. They don't go, yeah, America's in charge. No, they're forced at gunpoint to say America's in charge.
Mhm.
We're in the American Empire. The American Empire has been going since like 1945. You look back, every empire eventually does fall. Like at one point, Great Britain was great. It was
Mhm.
the sun never sets on the Queen's Empire, the Royal Navy, and now it's like what? The pyramids, where they used to be like white limestone with a gold cap. It was the pyramids, and now it's this archaic thing that you take a picture with. Like, so all these things that were at one point so unimaginably powerful, it'll never be surpassed. No one will ever get past that. This is the pinnacle of man. They have
Mhm.
more horses than anybody. We now look back at and we're like, yeah, it's the Kaiser Wilhelm army. You see all those helmets with the spikes. Their trains are on time. They have the machine guns. We can't. And now we're like, wait, what? No, dude, America with like an F-22 Raptor will blow up your house from 100 miles away and you won't even know it happened.
Mhm.
It all eventually falls apart. So, like, as much as the Federal Reserve or the World Economic Forum or the Trilateral Commission or the Council on Foreign Relations or whatever, the Bilderbergs, at some point, those will be as archaic and just like historical, like the most classified, like Area 51 or NORAD. At some point, those will be the ruins in Mexico that you take a picture with your spouse because you guys want to go visit the whatever the Mayan Aztec ruins.
Mhm.
Like areas that right now, if you and I went, we would be shot in the head, like a NORAD or White House.
Mhm.
There will be a point in the future where you're just there uploading the picture on Instagram. Like
Mhm.
it will fall apart. Here's Fort Knox, where the American Empire held all of their gold. Until, of course, the year 2120 when the Chinese raiders took it all. And it will just be another thing. And then people living in the Chinese Empire will go, we're the greatest. And then there will be some asshole like me and you sitting there going like, no, we're just in the Chinese Empire. And they'll go, the sun will never set on us. We have outposts on Mars. And be like, yeah, America walked on the moon. Like, and it will keep going and going and going. But the point is it seems like it does always die.
Mhm.
I have no idea where I'm going with this rant. Help me
No,
out
but
here.
no, but I think you're right though. I think one of the key points is that, there's always been at least a good amount of injustice with any of those empires, really, right? And you can take that to the United States currently. We're bringing them democracy in the form of bombs, destruction, death, and civil war, and a new Rothschild bank. That said, it's shiny though. But that said, all of those eventually come down, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing that the worst come down. It's how do you develop a society and a world where you're more educated, resilient, and you don't forget. You don't forget the ways you got there, and you appreciate them, and you don't let those human tendencies to get comfortable and distracted and not want to deal with things to get you to a better place. But no, I like it. I think them coming down is a good thing. And the other part that's interesting, if you use our previous analogy we were using of just even the person between Bob and Becky, how many of Bob's friends and or Becky's friends and family are going to want to look at that situation and go, something's just not right. But how many of them are going to step and cross that? How many of them are going to tell their other friends, what, I think something crazy might be happening there? Because everybody's going to look, no, Bob cares about you. The government cares about you. You can't say that they try to kill you. That same scenario, that same discomfort that you can imagine from that situation locally is basically the same thing that we're dealing with now. People can't deal with they're slowly becoming more, able to deal with it, and the scale's tipping, but they have a really hard time believing that literally the people that say they're protecting us, we've believed our whole lives are trying to protect us, are literally doing the opposite, at least from the highest places, right? That's a hard bridge to cross mentally. They can't really do it. So they keep waiting until it's uber obvious when we've now diagnosed that, giant amount of lead and, whatever else and arsenic there. And you go, well, how does she get that? And you have nowhere else to make an excuse. And you're like, that tea Bob's giving her every day that just comforts her and helps her is probably the only place on God's green earth you could have gotten all of those poisons, and you have to face it. You just have to. You can deny it for a while. If you had multiple friend groups, maybe you could deny a few of them. They're just, they die and all of our friends are sick. They died, 2 hours after drinking the tea. They died 1 day after taking the shot, but it wasn't related because, the tea is safe and effective, right? There's no way. I mean, it's not even a question, right? So I think, but I think that's the amazing thing is so much of this is mental / spiritual, at its core. Because most people out there wouldn't go along with this shit if they actually took the time, got past the mental barriers and the cognitive dissonance and what have you, and actually realized what was happening. That there's literally trying to slowly take over now more quickly, take over everyone and put them completely under their thumb, if not snub many of them out altogether. How many of them are going to take their next shot to keep their job? How many of them are going to do those things? And I think the answer would be a whole hell of a lot less. How many more would be working on the other side, joining Tommy's podcast and, starting their own podcast and, and kicking ass places? It would be a whole lot more. And it's just, how do you facilitate that process? Bob is literally poisoning her. I'm telling you, I know it sounds crazy. I know you think she's sick and he's super sweet, but he's freaking poisoning her. And you finally get them to wake up and you go, okay, maybe we can have somebody over there one time, or maybe we can save some tea. We don't even have to tell Becky, but we can help work this out behind the scenes. Maybe we don't have to tell every single person involved, but damn, can we help?
Yeah.
That's what we need to have. Maybe we'll find her a different way to get her cared for. Maybe we'll also bring him to justice. These things simultaneously are what's needed.
Yeah.
And sorry, I ran with that.
No. You kind of have to inch towards it, right? Because you couldn't kind of just come out, you're all sitting around hanging out and being like, hey, so not to change topics, but I think Bob's trying to kill Becky. Everyone's like, dude, what? It'd have to be you and one friend, and you kind of have to float a little bit. It is weird. And then even then you'd have to hold back your end thesis. You'd have to be maybe there's something in the house she's allergic to. You just have to kind of inch it forward. And even though both guys might be thinking, I think Bob's, no one wants to say it. So it might, or it might be something where you go, hey, change the topic. I think Bob's trying to kill Becky. You might have everyone go, I thought I was the only one that thought that. And then all of a sudden you have this, but that's rare where all of a sudden it all changes immediately. Like what happened in college with the bars. It's much more, you have to be like, let's play devil's advocate. Maybe she's allergic to the tea. Maybe Bob doesn't know. Who knows? Maybe it's an old family recipe and whatever. But like eventually you have to just move forward with like baby theses. And as each one keeps getting proved correct, you then use that as momentum. You have to go, well, listen, the last 5 of our crazy theses have all turned out to be true. We'll stop if even one of them isn't true. And so you throw out the 6th thesis, and everyone's like, that one's crazy. And you're like, let's try it. And it turns out to be true. You're like, okay, well, we're 6 for 6 now. We're not even like 4 for 6. We're 6 for 6, 7 for 7, 8 for 8, 9 for, and it gets to a point where it's like, you then have to play into people's like attraction to logic and patterns and be like, okay, guys, we're 21 for 21 now. We're going to try the 22nd, as crazy as it sounds. And then finally it's like, all right, guys, thesis number 30 is we're going to bring in a toxicologist, and some detectives are actually going to come in and put Bob in handcuffs. And if you inch your way up to it, it's much more acceptable. But I'm slowly becoming like self-aware as we have this conversation. It makes perfect sense if you just say it like this. I don't care what anybody says. Bob's fucking poisoning Becky. And like, and you go, oh, shut up, Alex. And, to his credit, then maybe you go, you know what? I give him credit. He didn't dance around it. Instead of babying it towards it, he just went, y'all are all crazy. Bob's killing fucking Becky. I'm going in there with a gun and I'm freeing her. Like, that is crazy. Maybe we justify it by saying, no, you got to go in baby steps. But like, I don't care what anybody says. I have the documents right here. I know for a fact Bob's purchasing cobalt from an old industrial mine. He's giving it to her. I've seen it before. He brags about it on his website. He has a pamphlet called The Great Poisoning. He puts it out there. He brags about it every day. He does it in the symbols. He has pictures on his wall of like.
That's perfect.
Be like, and maybe you need that guy. Maybe that guy is like, he puts out the grand thesis. And he sort of takes the flack as that guy, and everyone else can go, well, I don't believe that, but, and you can chip off a little bit. You go, let's at least see if there is arsenic in the tea. I don't believe that Bob's actually killing her and that he's buying stuff from an old strip mine like Alex Jones said, but it could be arsenic. Like, that's not that crazy. You can kind of inch your way towards it. And maybe
they found arsenic in baby food.
Yeah. And you go, yeah, exactly. You go, well, we know this happens. Maybe it's just an accident. And you inch towards it. And like, even with like, I look at like my first interview with Dr. Malone last July, and it's him just talking about like the dangers of like lipid nanoparticles and how they can have unintended consequences. And then I look at the episode I did with him last Wednesday, the 10th episode I've done with him, or 9th. And it's him talking about how like the CIA under the Dulles brothers helped shape the world we know now through military industrial complex and like dark banking. And I'm like, what a progression. I look back at you and I's first episode, and you were just talking about like data and computer systems. And now we're just blatantly talking about how there's like a global totalitarian government who are actively trying to kill like 6.9 of the 7 billion humans on Earth. And like, you almost have to walk closer and closer towards it for it to become more palatable. No one wants to be the one that says it. I don't want to be Alex Jones. Versus like, at a certain point, you just have to be like, well, another food processing plant's on fire. The government just created the Disinformation Governance Board. They also just today created the Environmental Justice Board, which does that not sound like a way to protect the world from the useless eaters?
Yes, that's yeah, exactly. When we talk about CO2 and what do we breathe out?
I know, right? I mean, right?
And they went cow farts first, though. You progress where the humans are the problems. First, we get rid of the million cattle and sheep in Ireland for climate change. Because I mean, what other issue was there for? I mean, I didn't look at that, but my guess is it was the whole flatulence, the whole being a aerobic organism, and breathing in oxygen and pushing out CO2.
You know what he said on his first podcast with Rogan in 2016? Rogan had him on for episode 911. Halfway through, he starts talking about it. He goes, I'm telling you, Joe, it's years away, but they're going to create a carbon tax on the life processes of man itself in order to justify the removal of us. And then I swear on his last episode with him in like 2018, he goes, they're going to be creating the autonomous robot hybrids to clean up society after they release the bioweapons to wipe out man. And Joe's like, Alex, you got to take it down a notch. And now here we are 2.5 years into a pandemic, and there seems to be a controlled attack on our food supply system. I mean,
The public incredulity allows this to get this far. People just can't believe it. They can't believe Bob's really poisoning Becky. And then I think the question comes in, how loud or how incremental but quickly do you need to work before like the tea finally does her in? And do you know when that moment's going to happen? When is that tipping point? So how fast can you or do you have to go in order to prevent the worst from happening in that instance? There's the question.
sometimes I think that it feels like they're getting like sloppier, doesn't it? And to me, that there's two reasons for that, and one is very good and one is very bad. And like I think about like in college when I'd be like in the last day of finals week of a semester. Like one semester I took biochemistry, genetics, physics, and OChem 2 or something stupid. And I was always very cognizant of like when I took caffeine, because I can't take it past a certain hour in the day because I got to be able to sleep that night, because the whole semester is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's got to be sustainable. You got to be able to wake up, go to the gym every day. You get an X hours of studying, go back to bed. And then like finals week, you're sleeping a little less, but it's because you're nearing the finish line. And when I would get to like the final day, I didn't, doesn't matter if the exam was at 8 p.m., I'd have like a monster and take like a Ritalin right before it. It didn't matter what time I went to bed because the semester's over. I have 3 weeks off. It doesn't matter when I go to bed tonight. There's no sustainability needed. I got to the finish line. So I'd be pounding caffeine. It didn't matter. I didn't have to get in bed at a reasonable time. Semester's over. I'm just going to get shit-faced tonight. And that was, if you looked at, well, why are you doing that? Was a good thing. It's because I was securing my 4.0 that semester. I already had a 98, but I'm going to power through the finish line. I'm going to get 100 on the final and make sure my average is a 98.5. Like I'm just going to so certainly get an A. You're running up the score in the Super Bowl. You are not going to lose this thing whatsoever. On the flip side, that very same thing, not getting enough sleep and consuming caffeine up until 8 p.m. for the exam, is the same exact thing you do if you had a D and you were just hoping like God to make it a C. So like,
I know exactly where you're at.
Yeah. So like I think about like in like towards the end of the Cold War, there was this like rocket launch from Norway. And it was a civilian like space experiment, whatever their space agency was. But like the trajectory, everything about it, the plume of the rocket looked identical to an ICBM. And like Russia started preparing for, or the Soviet Union started preparing for like a retaliatory strike. And we contacted Norway and we were like, yo, what the fuck is this thing? And we had to contact the Soviets. And we were like, look, we're not launching our missiles. This isn't. And so the Soviets didn't launch theirs. But rightfully so, the Soviets were like, maybe it is a science experiment. But wouldn't that be the perfect way to start a nuclear war, is to launch a nuke and then say it's a science experiment? And luckily, obviously, there wasn't war. But it's the same trajectory on the radar. same rocket plume, same. What's in the nose cone? Is it an experiment? Is it a thermonuclear warhead? And so when I look at how sloppy they're getting now, openly having a disinformation governance board, openly having the Great Reset, squashing and censoring everything that has to do with adverse reactions of vaccines, of openly attacking Elon Musk trying to push forward free speech, attacking Rogan for taking ivermectin. It's the food distribution centers on fire. It is so like in the open. It is such like a naked grab at consolidated world power that I have to wonder, do they have a 98 and they're like, we are not even going to risk losing this decades long plan? Let's just bulldoze it through. You're a mile ahead in the race to the marathon. You sprint the last 100 feet because you're just like, I've been training for this for years. I'm not going to lose this. Or are they like, we have a D plus, we are barely going to get across the finish line, and if we don't get across, we're all going to hang for crimes against humanity? Like the rocket, it looks the same. You take the caffeine pill and the Ritalin at 8 p.m. on that Friday of finals week, whether you're trying to get a 99 instead of a 98, or whether you're trying not to repeat that course because you're about to fail. It looks the exact same.
I'd say that's a great analogy. I'd say that I think the plan based off that analogy would be, you hope and you imagine that they're really at the D plus, but you operate as if they've got the 98, and then you just roll from there and let the chips fall where they may.
Oh God.
I guess it gets kind of, it washes out, a lot of different thought processes. And I'm like, and I get there, but I go through all of them too, because there's just so much to be said, and so much to be feigned from understanding the situation as best we can and looking at the different scenarios and gaming it out. I mean, that's part of that whole game theory process as well. You have to know, like, where is your enemy? I mean, Sun Tzu, Art of War stuff, right? If you're few, make them think you're many. If you're many, make them think you're few. If you're near, far, far, near, right? All those things, strong, weak, weak, strong. Doing that same sort of stuff is important to understand. It could look either way. And we need to plow through it one way or another, whichever side they're on. I think with it being the part that also, Tommy, makes me feel better, is that when so much of it is based upon deception and illusion, it makes me think more of a house of cards.
Yeah.
So they don't have some very powerful cards to play. That said, ultimately, though, it's kind of a house of cards. And if you get just enough exposure of where that house lies, doesn't take a whole lot of pressure to make it come down. Yeah, I might, bomb a bit on the way down, and some bad stuff might happen, but eventually the house falls, and that's where I take a good amount of optimism from too. The knowing that so much of it is so thin, and that most people out there are actually good. Even if you're saying, you're talking about politicians taking money, and you're all these different things, doctors taking money. Let's not leave us out. They don't get paid for injections. Let's be clear. I don't think really any doctors get paid for how many injections they put forth. The hospitals do, That said, most of the people out there still, like, they might be misled. They might also be paid off, scared, in a way of doing things. But they're like, oh yeah, that's really a house of cards over there. And they're trying to play those cards, so like you're all like not here. It's like Georgia Guidestones, like only 500 million, stay in perpetual balance with nature. Last one, don't be not a cancer upon the earth. Be not a cancer upon the earth. Kind of sounds like that Useless Eaters, doesn't it? So once they realize that that's what's written on the cards, they say, I think we'll just go push this down.
I'm kind of finding a flaw in my analogy, and that's if they had the 98,
Mhm.
would they not look back? It's like, so let's say like this thing is real, this crazy thing we're hypothesizing that there's this decades, perhaps centuries long plan for a global dictatorship to culminate, wipe out the rest of man, and transcend to the next level of human robot evolution. Sounds insane. So you just kind of have to put that out there. Like, let's just accept that.
Very much sounds insane.
Yeah,
There's
right.
no doubt.
It's not insane. It's what the literature says. Like, okay, Alex, again, let's take it as a grain of salt, and let's say it's there. What got them there? What got them here was unimaginable patience and not taking the caffeine pill at 8 p.m. It was very wise, slow, tactical, methodical moves. That's what got them here, right?
Mhm.
Setting up the Federal Reserve in 1913, like 109 years ago, like very slow moves. If they were that disciplined and that elite, I don't think they would even, I don't think they would risk it at all. I think they'd look at a 98 and go, take the 98. Don't let it fall below a 98. Don't be stupid. People would go, I'm going to go double or nothing. I'm going to try to get the 98.5. Smart people would go, hey, you're about to win the Super Bowl. Just take a knee and run the clock out. Don't risk fumbling it.
Mhm.
Be airtight. That's what they would do. They would only start to act this way because these, again, if this thing is true, then you can't attribute normal human traits to them. You can't say, oh, maybe they're just cocky now. No, you don't get cocky. If they are so elite and it's kids and your parents and your grandparents, if it's been this plan being passed down, it is so proven and perfect that they wouldn't risk even the slightest percent chance of messing it up. If they've been boiling the frog, they're not going to all of a sudden just jack up the heat. They're going to cross the finish line slowly and securely and take it away.
I
That's what
think
you.
that, yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. And I think that ties back, in my mind, that ties back to the fact that they need all of these people. They are struggling because people are going away and they're not complying with the system. So they're getting more desperate for more censorship,
Oh,
more control, and the means by which they can do it, just by their very nature, get more egregious and more silly
and
by the
more obvious
day.
and more obvious.
Mhm. And then people are paying more attention, so they become even more obvious to even more
So,
people.
so they comply less, which makes them have to reach even more. And yeah, it's like if I'm Tom Brady and some team wants to sign me for $1 million and I'm like, no, I don't want to play for y'all. And so I leave and they're like, all right, 2 million. And I'm like, no, I'm really not interested, and start walking out of the room. They're like 5 million. And I'm like, guys, I gotta run. I have a flight. And they're like 10, 100 million. What do you want? By the time I'm leaving, I'm like, you guys have completely dropped the mask. There is no aura of like hard to get. I now know I can ask for anything and I don't want any part of it. That's kind of what it seems like. So maybe they're not. Maybe the fact that they're doing this is because the whole thing's falling apart and they're trying to keep a lid on it. They're caught in a lie on top of a lie on top of a lie.
Mhm.
Maybe there's not even a finish line. Maybe the finish line, they can't possibly reach it. And now they're just trying to like keep the hordes at bay so that they don't end up on some Nuremberg dock. And then you'd have to hope that just like human self interest takes a role. And there's the, uh, what is it called? The prisoner dilemma. Is that right? The prisoner dilemma?
I don't know about
Where
that
they
one.
have to decide, should I sell out my guy so I can get off? Is he going to sell me out?
Yeah, I know one of the prison experiments, but I don't think that was it. It was like prison guards versus prisoners. But yeah, but anyway,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Nazis. The Nazis all kind of kept doing evil shit because they all had each other's back until the war started to look like it wasn't going their way. And then very quickly they started selling each other out for plea deals. And then the whole system came down exponentially faster.
Mhm.
They're trying to hold the thing together. Maybe our silver lining is they realize it can't work. And then they start going, fuck it, I have all this evidence. I'm just gonna sell out Fauci and Klaus Schwab, and I'm not gonna hang. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna be Werner von Braun. I'm just gonna go to the winning side and be like, yeah, I had a change of heart. I'm a born again.
I've got things to offer you. You'll
Yeah,
like it.
exactly. Yeah, I have a, yeah, and even if we'd be like, yeah, whatever, yeah, we'll take it if we can take down the whole system. I have no idea.
I think if anything else, that in this day and age that we're in, there's no reason not to be optimistic. Optimistic and do nothing, there's reasons not to do that. But to be optimistic, but to keep working, I think, maybe that's the sweet spot. If nothing else, you keep yourself occupied, while this is going down. You feel good about what you've done and your place in it. Knew you did all you could, so you don't have to go out feeling guilty. Um, and you've had a better attitude and a better time along the way until you get your ticket to heaven, and you roll from there. I don't know. I guess I'm just too simple. Compared to most people, I'm easily able to find a way to convince myself of things being better. But regardless, it works for me. It's kind of like the flip side version of whoever the traitor was in the first Matrix movie, and he's eating the steak and doing the deal with Agent Smith and says, I don't care if it's not real. I love it, and he was selling out doing something not good. But I at least feel like this is a good deception if I'm deceiving myself at all.
Yeah, that's my logic too. Is I'd rather not be optimistic and complacent, as Elon Musk says. I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right, because otherwise, why get out of bed?
Yeah.
I think we'll I think we'll wrap it up on that note. Yeah. Well, ultimately, I don't know. Find God. That's the
And that's the end piece that I was going to say too. Regardless, he
doesn't
wins
matter.
somehow. Yeah, he wins somehow in the end.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, however bad the tribulation or whatever things go on until then. I mean, we surely have the apocalypse is underway. I don't think there can be any doubting that. People can debate about where we are in pre-trib, trib, post-trib cycle. I guess is the normal thing amongst biblical scholars, which I'm not. But I don't think anybody can really deny this is literally the apocalypse, where the great unveiling is very much occurring. I mean, you have to see it, and it is being unveiled on a massive scale technologically and otherwise, even through the censorship. So I think that one's solid.
I mean,
Totally the apocalypse.
I mean, there is no doubt that we're just watching chapters of revelations unfold. Like 5 years ago, it was like, man, I can't believe Trump's going to win the election, and now it's like, huh? So there is the mark of the beast. There it is, huh? They
Oh
really
yeah,
are.
there's a patent on it. There's a
Huh?
patent for the mark of the beast.
Oh
Sweet.
six, oh six, oh six patent. Huh? You're like, that's odd. They really are trying to merge with machines, and there really are billionaires in Silicon Valley getting infusions of youthful blood. Huh? I guess Alex Jones was right when he said they're vampires. That's real. That's a factual thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't know
Oh,
if
absolutely. And even the one of the ones that blew my mind, I don't remember who I ran this by, but it was probably about a year and a half ago. They had an article in like the BBC or something talking about the Queen and or was it, I don't even remember if she's married or not, has a husband or her brother who is like the prince. But they had a supply of blood for their like bunker and like safe room stuff. And I was like, why would you have? I mean, you'd have to keep replenishing the blood all the time. And if you're in a safe room and you have warning and you probably at least had security. Were you planning on like cutting your hand on the way in really bad? And that's why you needed to have a stash of blood? I can't really think of a logical reason you would need to have a store of blood as a elite royal, so to speak, feigned elite royal for your bunker in your like doomsday scenario. That seems very odd. It doesn't keep there that long. It's really
unless of
interesting.
unless of course Alex Jones is right. They're literal demons. I don't mean that metaphorically, Joe. I mean they are literal demons. They feast on the energy of the youth. Oh, I mean, if energy is ATP and cellular regeneration, technically, I mean, yeah. And at a certain point, you have to go like, all right, he's been right 30 out of 30 times. What's the big thing? And his big thing is they're going to depopulate the world and then transcend to the next level of technological hybrid biological nature and advance throughout the cosmos. It sounds insane, but after like the first 30 claims come true, you can't help but go, all right, what'd you say the 31st was? If you and I are sitting at a table and we're playing roulette at a casino, and every time before I go, hey, ball's gonna land on 30 red, and you're like, whatever, dude. And it lands on 30 red, I go, gotcha. And then I tell you the next 29 plays, and you go, shut up. All right. So we do the next one, and I get the next one. After I get through 29 things and I'm just stacking chips, you're gonna go, what did you say that the 30th one was?
Yeah.
You
And
say
whatever is clear here, it sounds crazy, but apparently you've got a system.
at a certain point you go, I don't even care what my friends say. What'd you say it was? You said it was on green. All right.
Mhm.
How much do I got on my okay? I got 1,000 on my debit. There you go. At a certain point, you're crazy to not listen.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely at that point. I was trying to pull up, speaking of like crazy to not listen, I was trying to pull up real quick that little Rockefeller um quote. Did you ever see him talking about it? If he was at some major function, David, and it's probably around in like the 90s or something, and he said, some people out there say that we are part of a huge order. La, 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 la. You remember? Have you
And if
seen that
that is
one?
the assertion, then I am guilty and
I
proudly
stand,
so.
yeah, I stand
Yeah.
guilty or something. Yep.
I stand proudly. So people have asserted that I am guilty of creating a new world order that like garners the world's resources and military and economic might to control the world for a small few. And if that is your claim, then I am proudly guilty. That I stand guilty with pride. And you're like, huh. I mean,
Mhm. It's pretty funny. Like, just get that in front of people enough times. Like, there's only so much you can brush off. There really is. They're like, well, I saw Bob putting the dropper, and it was labeled arsenic. I mean, maybe it was sugar, liquid sugar. I don't know,
I
but
took I took Becky's tea and I put it in the atomic spectroscopy machine.
mhm.
It's all arsenic. There's a little Earl Grey in there, but it's mostly arsenic. We now have Bob on trial saying it's arsenic.
What more do you need? Apparently, there's a lot to this. The Lord will send a great deception. And I don't remember who all was opening the bowls in Revelations, which horsemen and
Yeah,
all these things. I don't know. I try not to like dwell on it too much because it seems so rough, but it's pretty clear that like bowls of different things are being opened one way or another by somebody, and we've got to deal with them. And we're supposed to, what is it? I forget the word over that they used. Of course, they've changed the words in the language to a degree, and some of that's just for modern times. But if for those who overcome, like will come into the kingdom of heaven, you know. 1,000 years of peace, that sort of stuff. So I don't even worry about overcoming though. I mean, I
yeah,
plan to try to overcome.
yeah,
I just plan to try to help on wherever we go,
yeah.
and let the chips fall where they may. Let that ball in that roulette wheel. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of my logic. Is I often think of like, let's say we do win. Best case scenario, all the evil guys hang. We get off the central banks. No more wars. All the patents for cures to illnesses and renewable energy. And let's say we get this ball rolling and turn this world into a Garden of Eden. Okay, then what? Well, it's great. Well, I mean, eventually, Maybe we get rid of aging entirely. Sure. All right. Maybe we last a utopia, a golden age for 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, 1,000,000,000 years. I mean, eventually the universe succumbs to a heat death and either collapses back into itself or expands at an exponentially increasing speed till it's nothing. So even in the best case scenario, you still lose. And that's kind of how I look at it, is like even when we beat Hitler and we beat Japan, you still just reach an old age and die, and you die heroic. I mean, you're a World War II vet, you did the right thing, sure. But you also have to be a big, what's the big picture? What's the picture beyond that?
I think that picture is just heaven. So
and that's what
happens in this.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's why I've just like turned back towards just like praying. And I'm like, even if we become some multi-galactic species, and then what? A black hole swallow? Fine God. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's even best case scenario, you still, and then what?
Yeah. There's way more questions than answers. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But I guess you just get in it deep enough, and at some point you're like, okay, I can't spend all my day freaking out about everything I've learned, because you just be a basket case. Like 1% or less of what I've learned in the last 2 years that, like, I know verified to be true, like, is enough to, if you let it, just make you completely insane, want to go jump off a cliff.
Yeah.
But I mean, certain things in your control, and there's many things that are not. And if you know that God's ultimately in control of the ultimate outcome, and that heaven's way better than here, I'm like, all right, I'm not going to let it bother me, and I'll try to find new, ever many new things and new ways to play and roll around and wake up people and change things. And hopefully the pace picks up, before Becky kicks it.
Yeah. Like, again, that doesn't mean give up. I think you do have to fight until the clock runs out, right? But if you do have that D+, doesn't mean give up. Stay for the full 3 hours you have for the exam. Try to make sure, but ultimately just acknowledge, like, at 11 p.m. the exam is over, and it is in God's hands. Whether or not I win after this, I'm going to the bar, and then I'm going home for Christmas break. It's just what it is. Yeah,
that's right, brother.
All right, man. Let's wrap this bitch up.
Yeah. What else you got tonight? You got any more? Or are you done?
No, I'm done, dude. I'm gonna get in bed early tonight. On the note of not letting the Great Reset get to me, after this, I'm gonna take a hot shower. I'm gonna call my mom like I do every night. Then I'm gonna play a little video games with my friend, and wake up tomorrow and do the podcast again. And maybe the world's over and Klaus launches some nukes. Maybe not. Maybe the interdimensional vampires try to bring hell into this world, and maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe Elon takes over Twitter and ushers in a new golden age. I don't know. I have no idea.
It's going to be a fun ride, whatever it is.
The bar is going to be the party after the finals are going to be great. Whether I ace the class or whether I'm retaking it, I'm going to go get shit faced at the bar. That's the way I'm looking at it. That's heaven. A-, F-. We're getting beer at the bar.
Absolutely. We're getting closer by the day.
Oh God. It really is. It really is the apocalypse. Good Lord. Dr. Aaron Williams, thank you so much, my man. I love you, brother. And I will schedule one with you, and we will get back at it. And as you and I both slowly descend into insanity.
That's right. I love you too, my friend. Take care. Get some sleep.
God wins.